Okay, so let me make sure everything is all right. Done. I should make some changes here. And yes, so okay. And also let's wait for a while so that perhaps others would join us. Okay, so far so good. Okay, as you can see, today we are focusing on an IELTS writing task 1 with a complete essay and also essay question and assessment. So you need to analyze or report a graph here or chart. So the topic is, let me see. The graph above shows radio and television audiences throughout the day in 1992. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. And write at least 150 words. Within how much time?
I think it's 20 minutes.
Yes, 20 minutes maximum. And okay, Andrew Christogab, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He is one of our IELTS candidates. So there are some major problems and also some good points that he has made. First of all, according to the data above, the audience of television in the UK is less than 50%. Even the audience of radio only makes 30% of the population. So I want you to just take a look at the graph very carefully before starting. Yeah, it's better to just consider the graph, all the details, because we need to summarize the information in a comparative way, comparing the data, particularly in two different trends, audio and video, let's say television and radio audiences. So in terms of percentage and also time brackets on a daily schedule, on a daily basis, in a daily schedule. And so here we have to make comparisons, focusing on similarities and differences or dissimilarities, because we have two different actually variables here. So on the first at first glance you can see that let's say the audience, the television audiences actually fluctuate very widely or broadly, if you can see, but the audience of radio audience does not have big fluctuations. Yeah, so this is something that should be stated, but the reporter, the IELTS essayist, actually has not focused on that, which is wrong. And a big problem that the audience actually has had and written is that he did not elaborate on their, let's say, this comparison, and also he just provided their reader, who's supposed to be a university lecturer, with some linear, let's say, statistics that could be easily obtained. So this is not the way you should do. And so let me see. Okay, so according to the So there are some grammar points here. The audience of television, it should be the television audience, and also the audience of radio, again the radio audience. It's more common to put it this way. And in your introduction or introductory paragraph for task 1, you should provide a general overview of the visual data. And he has not given a general overview of the visual data, and this is not a general overview, which is a shortcoming. And yeah, so do you have any further comment about the first paragraph?
In the first paragraph, he just tells our facts, and there's no so many information here.
So much information. Yeah, are you supposed to give so much information in the first paragraph?
We are supposed to give overall, like, I think so.
The overview, not overall. The general overview.
But there are, we can write like 2 overviews. Like, can we add more points in overview?
Yeah, in the first paragraph, of course it depends, but generally you need to start the first paragraph in this way, that you just summarize or rephrase or paraphrase the IELTS question, but in another way. For example, the graph above shows or tries to compare and contrast the rate of television and radio audiences in 1992 actually on a daily basis. So this is a good start to make. Okay, and then if the subject permits, you can just go into detail to some extent, but this is the perfect way to start. Particularly, remember, the first paragraph of your IELTS task 2 is different from IELTS task 1, because in IELTS task 2 you need to provide at least 2 sentences, one background sentence and 2 topic sentence. But here you don't need to use a topic sentence, because actually there is no argument here. You state your topic sentence because you want to just delve into an argument and make an argument, but here there is no argumentation. You just need to report some visual data and, let's say, transfer the form of the data from a visual point of view to actually a descriptive point of view. That is the difference between actually IELTS, the introductory paragraphs of IELTS writing task 1 and task 2, which seems to be confusing to some people. So okay, so that was a good point that you need to start your first paragraph with. And then in the second paragraph you must go into details, but not all the detail, because actually as you can see, the reporter here, the candidate, has given us so much information in a linear way that is not, he has not compared so many statistics with each other. Let's say on the radio data, the second paragraph, we can see that it has around 8% listeners on 6 a.m., which should be at 6 a.m., and he has made the same mistake again and again. 20% listener on 8 a.m., and you see, this is so confusing. All of the data have been brought here in a linear way, which is confusing, down to blah blah blah. And so the whole paragraph is so confusing. As I said, the second paragraph. Yes.
He used a percent symbol instead of the writing. Is it like like is it okay to use the symbol instead of that letter writing?
Do you mean percentage by symbol? What do you mean symbol?
Yes,
Which?
yes.
Yeah, that's quite okay, because task 1 is quite statistical by nature, and you don't need to use percentage actually in alphabet. And yeah, this is quite normal. And also numbers, for example, you don't need to write 21 in letters, but it's preferable to write it in digits, as the writer and reporter has correctly just elaborated on that. And but the whole paragraph is full of statistics, which seems to be somehow perplexing in the eyes of the reporter. And there is no comparison. There is no comparison here. Do you see any comparison?
No.
Yes, that's not the way you should write. You're actually task 2, which is just restricted to the academic module. And the data, I'm just reading out my own analysis on the radio audience, show that, and you have confused your reader with so many statistics. You do not need to report all the data or the statistics and that. Okay, let's move on to the third paragraph. Therefore, we can conclude that the highest rate of radio listeners is at 8 a.m. and the lowest rate of listeners is at 2 a.m. It's still better than actually the previous approach or method, just linearly reporting the data. But again, actually, there is no comparison. It's a kind of comparison between, or in terms of one variable, not comparing two variables. And also it could be attached to the previous, perhaps, paragraph. The above paragraph should be attached to the previous one, because it's just one conclusion about the same issue. And avoid writing paragraphs of one sentence paragraphs that have just one sentence, except the case of conclusion.
So if we add more conclusion, then can we make a new paragraph for that?
Well, the basic conclusion should be the one that is located at the end of your essay. And I said it's kind of conclusion because actually it concludes just one variable about radio listeners or radio audiences. And so we can conclude that the highest rate of so it just, as I said, it just refers to radio listeners and not both radio and television audiences. And remember, sometimes in task 1 you don't need to conclude anything, so conclusion is not a must in task 1. And you just simply need to compare and contrast, particularly if there is a pie chart. That is, there are two pie charts and you need to compare them. And again, here in this example, there is a graph with two variables or bars, so you need to compare the trends, so you don't need to just have any specific conclusion. Okay, so let's move on. The fourth paragraph. On the other hand, on the television data, we can see that it has around 0% watchers on the same problems, and there are so many numbers and figures. It then goes to its highest. What's wrong with that?
I don't get the question.
What's wrong with its highest? I have highlighted it.
It needed to be right as it's rather than it is. The writer.
Yes. If there is no, we don't need to have any apostrophe here. Its highest range, because it is a kind of, it shows possession, and it's not a contraction, which is 45% on, and and even the candidate, I think once has written at a particular time, and most of the time on. So it shows that he already knew about this grammar point. And remember, the essayist or candidate just has written this essay in 20 minutes, so in natural time period. So that's why actually he has made so many mistakes. But sometimes if you practice writing artificially at home, so you can even actually in the middle of your essay writing, you may have a cup of tea or coffee, which is wrong. So I just said it in a way that he had just 20 minutes to write the essay and submit it to us. And that's why it's so natural and realistic by nature, in comparison to most of the time when you just actually have snacks in the middle of your essay. So it's highest.
I have a question.
Okay.
Why is it wrong? Like, I don't get it. Like, does the compression that he used, it's the thing he used is wrong, or
Yes, it's wrong because ITS, for example, say its form, say the form that belongs to it. But when we say its form, IT apostrophe S, it shows that actually its IT apostrophe S must be it plus is. So that is contraction, that is abridged or shortened. But ITS without apostrophe shows possession, ownership. And it is, let's say, actually primitive grammar mistake. It's not advanced. It's primitive. Anyway, okay, let's move on. And therefore, we can conclude that the highest rate of television watchers is at, again, actually at, which is written correctly, at 8 a.m. p.m. and the lowest rate of watchers is at 6 a.m. And you have not concluded anything. It's just a general overview and you have reported it. Yeah, there is no comparison. It's just, again, actually another general overview. And the above paragraph should be attached to the previous one because it's just an overview, and also you should use some adverbs like respectively, and to shorten the length of your sentences and show statistics more easily. What does respectively mean?
means like in an order, like if you write 6 p.m. and 6 for example, it is written that 6 p.m. and 5 p.m. on TV and radio respectively, then it would be, link it that first answer would be for like 6 p.m. would be for TV and 5 p.m. for
Okay, yes. Yeah, it means in the same order as the things you have just mentioned. So if you can hover the cursor of your mouse on that, you will see the meaning of respectively, which is frequently used in IELTS writing task 1. And there are so many other quantifiers or intensifiers and conjunctions that you should know in order to just write an IELTS essay task 1 more professionally and brilliantly. You know, on LELB Society, there are some particular articles on conjunctions. We have almost gathered all of the conjunctions and the different types of conjunctions: subordinating conjunctions, coordinating conjunctions, reflexive conjunctions, with so many examples, and also focusing on the functions. So you just need to use that search box on top of the website and write conjunctions. You will find some, let's say, posts and lessons with flashcards. So you need to use them a lot, particularly in task 1. And as I said, intensifiers. We will talk about that later. Let's focus on this, the last paragraph. I think it's, yes, the last paragraph. So we can also see that the rate of radio listeners and television watchers were both around 15% on 1 a.m. and both were around 2. So we can also conclude that the audience of television outnumbers the audience of radio. So at least some comparisons are being made here, and that's why I think actually this is the best paragraph of the essayist. So rates should change to rates because there are 2 variables, and it's better to use the keywords in the instructions more frequently. For example, television and radio audiences. Yeah, because the repetition of keywords is one of the pillars of success in essay writing. Don't think that you need to just change the keywords. No, the keywords sometimes should stay untouched. And about the assessment, even actually I think he didn't deserve 5.5. And you should use more intensifiers and adverbs of frequency. Could you mention some intensifiers? Do you know some intensifiers or adverbs of frequency?
I don't.
You don't know?
No.
For example, significantly, slightly, moderately, boldly, noticeably, let's say unreasonably. These are some intensifiers. Very. Do not use these intensifiers or adverbs that are so cliched and so used by many others. You need to show that you know a lot of words. Infinitesimally, and badly, depending, of course, it depends on the adjectives and also the other words that you use. You know what collocation is? What is a collocation? What is a collocation? You don't know?
I don't.
Collocations are words that are used together. For example, you cannot say do a mistake. You should say make a mistake. You cannot say do a crime. You should say commit a crime. So these are collocations. And the same scenario occurs in terms of using intensifiers. So you cannot say, for example, you cannot overuse very in all contexts. You should use some other intensifiers depending on the other words in the context. And also, there is another point about task 1, and that is trend. Do you know what a trend is? A trend is a very marked change that should be elaborated. So in IELTS writing task 1, you need to, most of the time, you need to focus on the trends or changes in order to compare and contrast them, in order to show similarities and dissimilarities. And there is just one or two exceptions when you need to just focus on the process of something, because some task 1 essays are procedural essays, and you need to just elaborate on the procedure, and there is no changes, similarities or dissimilarities involved. And yeah, so do you have any further opinion, any question? Just what? I cannot hear the end of your speech.
Just one question.
Yes, sure.
Like it is written on the second last paragraph, therefore we can conclude that the highest rate of television watcher is at 8 p.m. and the lowest rate of watchers is at 6 a.m. So I want to know that why is lowest rate of watcher highlighted, like why is it wrong?
Okay, let me see. Mhm. We can conclude that the highest and the lowest rate of watchers. So let me see what I have written. Paragraph you should be attached. You should use some respectively. Yeah, pay attention to my last point. You should use some adverbs like respectively. So he could have written or used respectively instead of just repeating their whole sentence, repeating their phrases, the lower rate of actually watchers, or so he should have shortened the length of the paragraph with the help of one intensifier, that is respectively.
Okay, I see.
Yes. So, because the economy of language is really important in task 1, you need to write concisely, briefly. That's why you need to use just 150 words and not, for example, 250 in the case of task 2. And you have just 20 minutes, and it's not that much compared to task 2. And remember, your audience is not an ordinary person. Your audience, the reader of your report, is a university professor or lecturer. Therefore, it should sound more academic, and you need to use more academic words and not very simple words. Okay, let me just review my notes at the end. Cohesion, coherence, grammatical range and accuracy, lexical resources. As you see, lexical resources is so low, the score, and task achievement, spelling, punctuation, word count, 200. The good point actually is that he could write almost or approximately 300 words in 20 minutes. And that is really great. A very good impression it could make. And yeah, do you have any further question?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much for your participation, and see you tomorrow at the same time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.